Welcome to the Dropship Podcast, where you'll learn how to build and grow a high-ticket dropshipping business and hear stories from successful e-commerce entrepreneurs. Let's kick this thing off. Hey, welcome to the Dropship Podcast. Today we want to talk about 4 common things we see a lot of people get stuck on as they're building their dropshipping business. Things that we see people get tripped up upon and never continue, which is wild to me. So I want to address these 4.
Yeah, this is one for the people who are just getting started, who want to get started, or maybe have already got started and are finding themselves exactly in one of these situations. And so I think this idea came around. I think I posted something in one of our Facebook groups asking people, what's holding you back from starting a business? And I got a whole range of different responses, but some of them were very much seemed like people were getting stuck or using these really small things or these very small reasons and getting very focused on them. And I think kind of using it as a, like a crutch or a support for why they weren't moving ahead. And there might be some deeper reason for that they were putting it out in front. But I think, there's some, really simple solutions for those people to help them move ahead. Do you know what I mean?
What's wild is 2 things. One, a lot of these people who answered are our customers. Like they're already bought the course and they're not doing these things. And then, just reading through here, I did 2 out of the 3 and I'm currently doing the last one. So cool. You said it at the event and I was like, oh, God damn it. He's talking directly to me too. So no one's immune, right? No one is immune. We all make these mistakes. However, the faster that you can get past these and move forward, the better off you're going to be. So the first one is like, pre-buying our course. One thing I hear often on our sales calls is like, I'm so ready. I've listened to all of your podcasts. I'm ready to jump in. I just need to figure out my niche first and then I'll buy the course.
Yeah. This one, I just don't get it. To me, it doesn't make sense because that's literally the first thing you're going to learn in the course is how to do it right and exactly how we do it. And then you're also going to get our advice on whether or not the idea that you've got is the right one for you to do. I mean, like we go and look at it and give you that feedback and say, yes, that's a great idea. Or no, hey, well, there's something about that we don't like. You shouldn't do that. Move on to the next idea on your list. And so it's kind of counterintuitive to say, I need to know what I'm going to sell before I start because you don't know how to work that out yet. I mean, yeah, you could listen to the Dropship Podcast. Of course, we have talked about that in some ways on this show. But if you get in and then what are you going to do? Watch the videos and you've done it wrong and you've got to go and head and do it again anyway. I think it's, I think this is kind of tied up in people believing that there's it's a bit of a scarcity thing. Like, I'm not actually sure that there's viable markets out there or viable niches out there for me to do. So until I know that there is, I can't commit to actually doing it. Do you know what I mean? And so I kind of want to bust that by saying we talked about it recently on this podcast, like in our good niche, bad niches, like we keep pulling up ones and we're like, I don't even know anyone doing that. Right? I think there's just so many ideas out there. Like I could whip up a list of 10 in about 20 minutes that I know work that nobody's really nailing. Right. And so I just, this one you got to move on. I can
hear him, John. So why don't you give us that list, John?
Because if I gave you that list publicly, then everybody would be doing those things straight away. And we've seen this. It's something we've always avoided doing. I mean, we've talked about things that we would and wouldn't do in specific instances in our good niche, bad niche episodes. The reason that we don't put out 237 niche ideas that everybody should do in 2023 is simply for that reason. I think And when you look at those lists, and we've pulled them apart on this show before, usually the top few ideas are ones that we would say no to, simply because they're super competitive. So there's a balancing act here. But I also think it's important for you to find what works for you too. You shouldn't do something just because John says you should do it or Ben says you should do it. This is a personal decision, right? It's your business. You have to do the work to find your business. And, for a lot of people, if they just did whatever we told them to, they might miss a business idea that they're actually personally have some connection to, which they would kill way easier than something that I tell them to do. You know what I mean?
We do a lot of coaching. And when you're a good coach, you don't actually tell anyone what to do. You ask questions so that they come to the conclusion, and they buy into it more when it's their idea. This works with employees as well, by the way.
Yeah.
And so, like, the more we can get you to come up with your own idea, the more invested you're going to be, the more you might, like you said, find something you're actually passionate about that we would have never thought of. You're going to want to move forward when it's your idea. I'll do you one better. Dropshipbreakthru.com/5, the number 5. Dropshipbreakthru.com/the number 5 for $97 in just 5 days. You can work through our process on how to choose who you're going to sell to, what products you're going to sell them, and know exactly your next steps for building your business. So that's an easy way to, if you're still sitting here, I don't want to do it quite yet, just dip your toe in. $97 and work through this process, and you'll likely come out of there with a lot more ideas than you had before and understand the criteria that we have when we tell you how to choose a niche.
Absolutely. Number 2, this one. So getting your like people focus the website part, right? So after you work out what you're going to sell, you're going to set up a website, right? Before you call suppliers. And we do that, so that we've got an extra level of credibility when we call the suppliers and that sort of thing. But I find people get stuck and then kind of stop making progress on building that website. And they're trying to get it like perfect. And that perfectionism thing starts to come in, and they're like, oh, I don't know if my website's good enough. I'm just going to keep working on it. Because the next step is challenging, right? You've got to pick up the phone. You've got to face that potentially. And you're going to get some rejection, right? Some people are going to say, no, we're not interested in working with your business right now. Some people are going to say yes, and I think, it's easy to try to avoid that. For a lot of people, because you're putting yourself out there, right? It's a very challenging aspect of the process for a lot of people, and so I think people see that coming and they're like, oh, I'll just do some extra little tweaks to my website. I'll build it out a bit further. I'll keep putting in more work. And, oh, maybe that's not quite right. I better go back to it. You know what I mean? And once again, I think when we do this, we set up really basic websites. Like they're good enough, but that's all you need. Like it takes you a bit longer when you're doing it for the first time. But I mean, you and I can probably knock one of these up in a few hours.
Yeah. Or
something like that, that's ready to go to the next stage of calling suppliers. So if you're getting stuck at that point right now, just know what you've done is good enough. I don't even need to look at it to say it's good enough, move on.
I'm going to empathize with the listener here, right? So I didn't buy a course 8 years ago now because I wanted to find the perfect thing to sell. I also thought like whatever was in the course that there would be no extra things in there and I wasn't going to learn anything for some reason. So I waited to buy the course, and then I did buy the course. I built brickfirebbq.com, would not call suppliers, found someone saying, I did pellet grills, it doesn't work, don't do that. So that scared me off. Mm-hmm. And then I bought a website from someone who was unhealthy. He was in the hospital a lot. He had 4 suppliers. That was my gateway to not calling suppliers. The main one dropped me the day I bought his website for like $400, right? And I never got them back. And so here I am sitting there, and I was like, well, they probably didn't like the website. So I'll work on the website a while. And it's not a free theme, so I'll go buy, and I don't even remember what I bought back then. Turbo or Retina. Retina was the one. Yeah. Yep. So I bought Retina, remade the whole website, which you can go find if you want to go look on the Wayback Machine at the 3D printer guy. You'll see my handiwork. I redid all of that while still waiting to call suppliers. And it was a big fear of mine. I think I've told this story before. It reminded me of 3rd grade pacing in the laundry room to call Sarah Peavy and ask her, will you be my girlfriend? It reminded me of that same fear. She said no, by the way. So did a bunch of suppliers sometimes. Not this case, though. Literally that day I called 20. I had landed 20 out of 20 when I finally actually did the work. But I spent a long time thinking my website wasn't going to be pretty enough to get a yes, or who am I to call these suppliers?
Yeah. I mean, thinking back to my very first effort here, Chic Chandeliers, when I first built that, and to see the original version of it, I suppose it's probably on Wayback Machine as well. It was a long time ago. I think back to it, and I never took many screenshots of it. I kind of wish I did, so I could just pull it up and remind myself of how terrible I was at one point. But I can remember, that first website was terrible. And, I still ended up with, before I updated it, I still had 6 or 7 suppliers on it, right? From my first round of calls, got no's and all of that sort of thing. So the bar is not high here. And whether or not a supplier says yes or no to you is unlikely to be because of your website, I think. I think that's, it could potentially be a factor, but I think it's going to be pretty low.
Yeah, and I think even when you do call suppliers, which I'm trying to find you a link, producer guy. I'll try to email you a link in the middle of this. We can pull it up for funsies. Even when you do call suppliers and you get them on board, there's another hurdle that we see people often struggle with. This is the one I didn't struggle with, but I see it a lot. And we saw it in the comments of like, all right, my got 4 suppliers on board. I'm going to upload every single product they have. I'm going to do everything perfectly. I'm going to tweak the collections. You know what? I need to mess with my homepage some more long before I ever just flip on Google Ads and find out what's going on. I actually don't know the hurdle here because I feel like it wasn't one for me. Can you possibly empathize with the person who's wants to get these brands all the way uploaded before they flip on Google Ads?
I can. And I think it's, once again, it's probably potentially a couple of fears tied into this, right? Because, I mean, once you flip on ads, it's real. It's real. Like you're spending money, which, you know, this is the first time where you're really going to spend some money, which if you don't get any results there, you know, you're potentially losing money, right? But also it's also putting you're putting yourself out there in a different way. And I think people feel at this point quite an attachment to their business. You know, it's kind of like your baby. And I think the thing is, like, some people feel like in their mind, if I put my baby out there and
it gets rejected.
And it gets rejected by, as in customers come, they look at my website, they don't buy anything. Like it's a message to me that I'm not good enough, I'm failing, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, those are very real, very real fears that people have. And like, I mean, I've had that same thing in different ways, but yeah. So, I mean, I can totally picture that. And, you know, the answer to that is, once again, to go live to customers, your website doesn't have to be fully filled out with products and different collections and all of that sort of thing. I mean,
there he is.
The 3D printer guy. If you're watching along on video, you can see a bit of Ben's first website up there.
Look how giant that image is before you get to any products.
That's terrible.
Yeah, not good. Hey, look, I'm sending him the link to Chic Chandeliers here in a minute. We can bust your balls
worse.
too.
Even worse. Yeah, the reality is the first thing you're going to run here traffic-wise to your site is Google Shopping, right? So the customer is going to land
on a product page.
They're not going to go through your whole website. They're not going to go through every collection on your website. They're not going to look at every single page before they decide whether or not to buy from you. They're going to look at that product page. So I think as long as you've got the design of your product page looking reasonable, and you're doing a lot of the things that we've talked about on this show. I mean, we talked about some of the SEO things, which are also good for Google Shopping, by the way.
Sorry, this website's mesmerizing me. It takes me way back, man. Like I talk about that $5,000 Airwolf 3D Axiom 2. That's the product. I made $12.50 on it every time I sold one. I sold a ton of those little 3 doodlers and actually made money on an $80 product. Like,
yeah, wow. That's cool.
Man, that takes me way back, man. I actually bought the domain back the other day. I was on a call with somebody explaining it, and it was available again. And so I bought it. Maybe I'll throw it up for funsies one of these days. But I sent the producer your link too, so we'll see what he has to say about it. All right, so the last one here is one I'm actually failing with too. Is let's say you only get 4, 5, 6 brands on board, and you start running ads. So you got over all these hurdles. I see, and I'm doing it myself. Let's get these brands working before I call any other brands. If I can't get these to work, what's the point of calling the other brands, John?
Yeah. So, and I see this, and this is a classic mistake that I've seen over the years a lot of people make, is that they do exactly what you're talking about. And if they don't get anywhere with those brands, they go, oh, well, this niche is shit.
Yep.
This is the wrong thing. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to start from scratch. I'm going to pick a new niche, and I'm going to go back to scratch, and I'm going to rinse and repeat this whole process again.
There
and then is. That's actually not the original one.
Oh, they made it better.
Well, that's way better than the original one. Well, that's not that terrible.
Yeah.
It could be way better, but
no.
That was not actually far from when I sold it in 2017, to be honest. And so, digressing a little there, but and so you're just going to repeat the same process again, and you're probably going to have the same problem again, because the reality is, in every niche, there are some brands that sell better online than others. There are some brands that will sell better on your website than other websites, right? And so let's say there's 20 brands in your niche, right? And you go and get 3 or 4, which is enough to launch with, and you should. You absolutely should do that. You shouldn't wait until you've got 15 before you launch your business, going back to some of our previous points. But you can't stop calling suppliers then, because if those 3 or 4 that you got weren't the best in the market and you make a judgment about the whole market based on like a quarter of it, of the suppliers, you're going to give yourself often a false negative. So you're not going to get all 20 immediately, right? I mean, that's for sure. But you can usually, if you've got that many suppliers, you can do more than 3 or 4. A lot of suppliers will come on board after you've launched, often that didn't in the beginning, because they want to see if you can go through with it and get a business up and running before they spend any time with you. That does happen. And so once you launch with 3 or 4 or whatever, go back to your list and start calling those suppliers again. Call ones that you didn't get a response from. Usually if you've got 20 suppliers, you're going to have like 4 or 5 that in your first round you just didn't hear back from, right? They didn't say yes, they didn't say no. Go back and hit those guys up first for sure. Like keep hassling them. Be like relentless. I think we said this in our live presentation. Be fucking relentless, right? And then even ones that said no the first time around, these ones can feel a little bit more challenging. Just go back and pick up the phone again. And remember, you're trying to build a relationship with these people. So just call them and say, hey, how's it going? How's business going? Look, we're still really keen to sell your products. We're up and running now. You might have even made a few sales by then. You can say, well, we're selling this brand over here. I think there's a pretty good space for your products because you got some nice products. Can we get them online now? Can we start selling these things? If not, hey, that's okay. I'm going to call you back again in a few weeks' time. Just touch base again, see if anything changes. And guess what? You're going to call them back again in a few weeks' time. And after that, you're going to call them back in a few weeks' time. And you just keep doing that. It's like that old sales thing. Like the best salespeople make most of their sales on the 5th, 6th, 7th follow-up call with prospects, not on the first. And the best salespeople are the ones who follow up 5th, 5, 6, 7, and 8 times, whereas most salespeople will cut out on the first couple. They won't go past 2 or 3 calls, right? And you've got to be the same. You've got to be the same with suppliers. Just keep touching base, but treat it like a relationship because you are building a relationship. So just have a chat with people. Like you don't have to get on the phone and say, hey man, can I sell your products? Just, hey, how's it going? How's business going?
Realize
like,
who
how's
you're
your
talking
day?
to as well, right? Like you're likely not talking to the owner of the company. You're talking to someone who works there. This is their job. And a lot of people aren't super happy in their job. And so can you delight them? Can you make their day? Can you talk sports with them? Can you talk about whatever they're into and just build a relationship with that person so that when they need to go to their management and say, hey, I got somebody I think we should approve, they want to go to bat for you.
Yeah. And like you're not going to be perfect at this the first time around. I think it's okay to accept that and realize that this does get better with practice, right? So Ben and I talk about it like it's nothing right now on this show, I think, or
and I landed 20 out of 20 my first try. That is so fucking rare. I probably should stop telling the story, right?
I didn't.
It sets people up for
I've never hit 20 out of 20, right? Yeah. Even if I did it today on a new business, I would not expect to hit 20 out of 20. That would not be my expectation going into it. And I've made literally hundreds and hundreds like calls to probably more than 100 different suppliers. Probably easily. Maybe even more than 200 in my time. And, it's when we describe it, it sounds like it's real easy. I still, feel that little clench of nervousness and fear in your chest. When you're picking up the phone and you're like, oh, what the fuck are these guys going to say? You know what I mean? I'm not feeling real confident. I might have called them before, but you've just got to, I just think of the outcome. Like every supplier you call could be $1 million supplier for you. Every single one. I've had individual suppliers where just one brand on a website was like $800,000 in sales a month. And every person you call could be that for you. And think of the difference that makes to your business. Think of the difference that makes to your life. Think of the difference that makes to your family. All of that. That's what goes through my head whenever I'm facing one of these challenging calls. And I visualize where I'm going to be if I can land that supplier, that $1 million supplier. And to me, that process is often what gets me through, just to pick up the phone and just like make that call.
Well, we've seen it with our own students. We saw it when we posted this comment in the Facebook group. These are the things that can get you to not move forward. And like all you need to do is continue with momentum. So whether we're talking about finding your niche before you buy the course, dropshipbreakthru.com/5, you can find it. If you need to get your website perfect before calling suppliers, John and I just said we could whip one up in a couple hours. Might take you a little bit longer, but you can probably get this done in a couple days maximum and call suppliers, right? Upload every product and collection. They don't need to be perfect. Just get them up. Get your product pages great, because that's where your traffic's going to go. Start running Google ads. And then if you only have a few brands on board, keep calling. I think that's important. Just to tie a bow on this, there's going to be a lot of things that come up in your entrepreneurial journey, and each and every one of them can be the one thing that stops you from moving forward. I would just encourage you to push through that. Whatever that is for you, push through it. Make sure that you can not get in your own way, which is the easiest thing to do in your entrepreneurial journey. You might think the no's from the suppliers are what are going to hold you up. It's the no's between your ears that are going to stop you from success.
Thanks for listening to the Dropship Podcast. You can find all the show notes for this episode at dropshippodcast.com. And if you're ready to take the next step in your dropshipping journey, we invite you to join us inside Dropship Breakthru, where John and I will walk you through step by step in starting your own high-ticket dropshipping e-commerce business. But that's not all. Dropship Breakthru will also teach you everything you'll need to know to grow your business and take it to the next level. So head over to dropshipbreakthru.com and sign up for our free training that will help you take the first steps towards building and growing your own profitable high-ticket dropshipping business.